This video is made possible by my patrons on Patreon. Hello everyone, my name is Xiomaro and welcome back to Battlerite 2.0. Today is the day when the big patch goes live. A few of us have already had a chance to check this out during the short window of time last week on the test server, and I was one of those lucky few. So I'm here to give you the lowdown on what's new, what's good, what's bad, and whether or not it's worth coming back to Battlerite to check it out. Well, the short answer is yes, it's definitely worth coming back to give it a try. This patch addresses 3 common complaints about the game. So, number 1, the lack of depth. Anytime I or anyone else talks about why people are leaving Battlerite, this is one of the main things that comes up. Well, this patch has Stunlock's answer to that. You now have exploding barrels and jump pads in some of the maps, consumables and gear that you can pick up on a round by round basis, and the overload ability that you get when a teammate dies. To give you a little more information on each of these, barrels and jump pads now spawn in Meriko Summit, Blackstone Arena, Daharan Battlegrounds, and Skyring. The barrels are only in Meriko and Blackstone, while the jump pads spawn in Daharan and Skyring. This is probably the change that people have had the most mixed feelings about. Personally, I haven't played with these changes enough yet to have a really strong opinion, but what I do know is that it's not really the direction I would have gone in. But hey, I'm willing to give it a try. As for gear and consumables, at the start of the game, you now get to pick one piece of gear or a consumable, and each subsequent round you get to pick another one, up to a maximum of 3. You can also only have a maximum of 2 of either type, so you can have 2 pieces of gear and a consumable, but you can't have 3 pieces of gear, for example. You also get to re-pick the items at the start of each round, so you're not locked in if you change your mind. The gear is completely independent of the character you choose, so the same gear is available to everyone. They're kinda like generic Battlerites, and they include things like the Heart of Boulder Pass, which gives you an extra 20 HP as a passive, and also makes you invulnerable the first time you fall below 50% HP, which is pretty cool. You have the Jolting Amulet that increases your energy gain by 10% and gives you 25% energy back after using your ultimate. Then you have the Champion's Blade, which makes your primary attacks heal you or give you a shield if you're already topped up every 15 seconds. There are a bunch more to check out as well, and of course I'll leave a link to the full patch notes in the video description if you want to check that out. As for the consumables, you can get things like healing potions, rabbit potions, rocket boosters, and loads more. A lot of these things come from Battlerite Royale, so if you've played that, you'll probably know what to expect. And then we have the Overload ability. This ability becomes available each time an ally dies. It heals you for 20% of your health when you use it, and for 8 seconds it increases your damage output, healing output, movement speed, and ability cooldowns by 40%. Yes, 40%. But the flip side is it also increases the damage you take by 40%. Essentially, this ability is supposed to make 2v3s and 1v3s a little more fast-paced and exciting. And in my limited experience so far, I think it definitely does just that. It's a bit of a Hail Mary move, but when you use it, you're either gonna explode some fools or, well, get exploded like a fool. Moving on from the new added depth, the other complaint this patch is aiming to fix is the lack of progression. This is the other criticism that comes up from ex-Battlerite players. First off, come on people, do we really need to give every game pseudo-RPG elements? It's honestly baffling to me. A few years ago, there was a lot of criticism about the Skinner box techniques MMOs and other free-to-play games use to keep people playing. Has it really got to the point where the players are asking for these techniques to be used on them? Like, seriously, what the fuck, people? But hey, you asked for it, and SLS delivered. So the first thing that has changed is season levels. Instead of having a flat account level that increases over time, you now have a season level that resets each season. If you're really interested in how it works, just go check out the patch notes. But long story short, the more you play, the more levels you get. And the whole thing is tied into the other new progress track, the Battle Pass. So this is the reason for having a season level, really. Anyone who has played Fortnite or Dota 2 knows exactly what this is. It's basically just an XP track that rewards you with cosmetics and that sort of thing. You have the free pass that doesn't give you an awful lot, but it still allows you to progress and earn season levels. And then you have the premium Battle Pass, which is obviously paid for, but this one gives you a ton of new cosmetic items. If you're into cosmetic items and you play a lot, it's definitely worth getting. Honestly, the Battle Pass makes sense to me. Up until now, despite what you might think of Stunlock's management of the game, the business model has been very fair on the consumer. Almost too fair in my opinion. The company does need to make money, and up until now, there wasn't really a lot to spend your cash on. Once you had the All Champions pack, you had most of what the game had to offer. The Battle Pass gives you another way to support SLS long term, while being totally optional due to it only being cosmetic items. The other change to Progress is updated quests. The daily quest system has been updated to include more stuff. As well as the old ones like play 4 matches with a ranged champion, you also have new stuff like gather 2000 energy, play a match in a party, and strike a killing blow in 2 matches. There's also a season quest system now as well. They're basically the same thing as the daily quests, but new ones unlock each week of the season, and you have 10 weeks to complete them. You get 1 free season quest per week, and 1 premium season quest that you only get with the Battle Pass. They're basically just another way to gain season levels and tiers for your Battle Pass. And don't forget, you still have the sponsors to complete as well. Moving on from progression, we have the final complaint about Battlerite Arena addressed: movement speed. This is one that is more of a gripe for higher ranked and more experienced players, particularly those who are familiar with Bloodline champions. A common complaint among veterans is how much slower Battlerite is compared to BLC, so this is another big change in this patch. Essentially, all the champions have had their movement speed increased by around 10 or 11%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but you can definitely feel it. On top of that, the speed of pretty much all the projectiles in the game have been increased too. But in the case of the projectiles, some of them have had their speed increased by as much as 30%, so the projectiles are a lot faster. And what's more, a lot of the ground targeted abilities have had their radius increased. To be honest, because of the radius increase on ground targeted abilities, this doesn't really increase the skill cap by much. If anything, it might even lower it a bit on some champions. But it does change the pacing of the game. When combined with gear, consumables, and overload, games feel a lot faster paced in this new patch. Finally, let's quickly talk you through the champion updates. Most of these changes are to the projectile speeds, the AoE radiuses, and that sort of thing. But there are 3 other changes that I want to draw your attention to. Croak has had his mouse 1 mechanic changed to match the way it works in Battlerite Royale. He no longer has an ammo system like Ivor and Jade, and instead he has a weapon charge more like Sirius or Rukan. This change makes Croak a lot more intuitive to new players compared to the ammo system, so it seems like a smart change to me. I'm all for making the game more accessible to new players. Another interesting change is to Ivor's ultimate. She can now move at 40% movement speed while using her ultimate. Up until now, Ivor's ult was always kinda garbage. And honestly, it probably still won't be that great, but this is definitely a welcome change. At least now you can reposition a little while you're using it, so you're not quite so much of a sitting duck. And the final thing I want to draw your attention to is the change to Pestilus's Queen. It's finally happening, people. The recast functionality is finally being added to the base ability. So Pestilus mains rejoice. This will open up a lot of new options for Pestilus players, so I'm really happy to see this change. Now, these aren't the only changes to champions. For example, Sirius has had his M1 damage and weaken duration increased. Older has had a bunch of rights changed, but this video has already gone on long enough in my opinion, and there were way more interesting things to talk about. In any case, this patch is by far the largest changes we've seen to Arena since forever really, so if there was ever a patch to come back and check the game out again, this is probably the one. Will it be enough to save the game long term? Who knows? But if nothing else, Stunlock Studios have answered pretty much all of the community's common suggestions and complaints, and then some. I know I'll be playing a bunch over the coming weeks, and hopefully I'll see you guys in game too. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe for more gaming guides, news, and discussion. And don't forget to check out the links below to Patreon, Discord, and Twitch. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.